Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, yo. I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. Let's get the B going. It's time. Bat signal activated. Lakers have won their sixth in a row. They improved to 43-25. Of note, during this 6-game win streak, they have beaten each of the 3 teams that they are most likely to play in the first round. I think that is really important during the stretch here, but they continue to solidify their position as the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. They are now a game and a half over number 4 Houston, with Wednesday's matchup against Houston determining who wins the head-to-head tiebreaker, who wins the season series. So that is now a huge game for the Lakers. Had they lost tonight, Houston would have jumped them in the standings and won the season series. But now it's coming down to Wednesday, where if the Lakers win, they have a 2.5 game advantage over Houston and they win the season series. If they lose, they have a half game edge over Houston, and Houston has the head-to-head tiebreaker with a slightly easier schedule down the stretch of the season. Just look this up for whatever it is worth. But according to Tankathon, after tonight's game, Houston has the easiest remaining schedule of those 4 teams in the West. The Nuggets have the second easiest. The Lakers have the third easiest, second toughest, and Minnesota has the toughest. Now, we're talking percentage points here. They calculate it based on opponent win percentage. So it's a 0.48 win percentage for Houston's opponents, 0.499 for Denver, 0.501 for LA. So LA and Denver are basically tied, and then 0.511 for Minnesota. So Minnesota's slightly tougher, Houston slightly easier, but just wanted to share that before we get more into some of the seeding stuff. But LA's in great position right now to at least be a top 4 seed, have home court advantage in round 1. They took care of business, winning at least one of the 2 games in Houston. If they take care of business, the final 14 games of the season, they're going to have first home court advantage in the first round, which I think is huge for this team. Did not work out last year, so that's the counterpoint, right? But I think that this team has been playing much better at home lately. I think it's always better to have home court advantage rather than not have home court advantage, have a potential game 7 at home. Like, I think home court advantage might not matter the first 6 games of the series necessarily, but you go to 7, you want that game at home, and home teams continue to win in the high 70s percentage wise in terms of a game 7 at home. So like you want that on your side, and the Lakers are in pretty good position right now. After being the 5 or 6 seed for a large stretch there during the middle of the season, they have rallied at the right time. They are ascending. They are coalescing, as JJ Redick has been saying, and things are great right now. And some really impressive statement wins for LA over the past week and a half. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. I appreciate you guys. For those who are tuning in and have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Trying to get to 34,000 subscribers by the end of the month. We have a little under, or about 2 weeks left through March. So it would mean a lot if you hit that subscribe button if you're tuning in right now. All right, let's get into it. So Buha's big picture is surviving both sides of the playoff-like crucible. And what I mean by that is, similar to the Denver game, the Lakers played a game that felt like a playoff game. It was a close game against a potential first-round opponent for the Lakers. To reiterate, they're going to play almost certainly, barring one of those teams just collapsing down the stretch and Phoenix somehow ascending into the top 6. The Lakers are going to play Denver, Minnesota, or Houston in round 1. So we've gotten a little bit of a preview of each of those matchups over the past week. But similar to the Denver game, like the Minnesota game, Lakers broke that one open in the third quarter. The New York game, LA was in control, led wire to wire the entirety of the game. But the Denver game, we obviously saw that middle portion. Denver outscores them by 24. LA's down 7, rallies late, ends up out executing them in overtime and pulling off their comeback. This one, some similarities with the Denver game in terms of LA. They led 52% of the first half. So they were in control of the first half for over half of the half. And then Houston outscored them 22-10 over the final 7 minutes of the second quarter and had some momentum with that 6-point lead at the half. Then they stretch it to 10 points. And then LA goes on a little run. They stretch it back to 9, and that they're kind of trading baskets there. And like almost halfway through the third quarter, Houston's still up by 9. And then there's a huge sequence of a couple of turnovers against Kevin Durant, which Austin Reeves led that charge. He had 3 steals in that third quarter, and then also drew a charge against Kevin Durant, which got upgraded to a flagrant foul 1. And that little stretch there where KD had a couple passes that were stolen by Austin, and then also got the flagrant against Austin, that stretch completely shifted the game. Houston was not the same offensively the rest of the way in that third quarter, and LA just took control of the game from that point on, and it was close in the fourth quarter, and neither team could score. LA went on a stretch of missing, like Lakers could not make a shot. Houston could not make a pass. Houston could not. Houston had 22 turnovers tonight, including 7 in the fourth quarter. Kevin Durant had 7 turnovers, his second highest total of the season. So similar to the Denver game, it's a game against a really good team. There are playoff implications in terms of the stakes of the seeding and the tiebreaker. And similar to Denver, if the Lakers had lost that game, Denver would have had the head-to-head tiebreaker. So like tiebreaker is at stake here. But unlike the Denver game, that was more of like a shootout. That was more of all these explosive offensive sequences. And Denver kept scoring and having these like demoralizing shots and plays against the Lakers. And the Lakers withstood, I talked about it after the game, like they kept withstanding blow after blow after blow from Denver and responding with their own blows. And they ultimately out-executed them down down overtime, but even the final few minutes there. With this one, it was the opposite, where this was not a shootout. This was a pure rock fight. And based on these two teams' stylistic preferences, based on their identities, that on paper should favor Houston. Houston is more of a rock fight team. They're a team that has a lot of length and athleticism and size and strength and physicality. And we saw that play out at times tonight. But LA withstood that. And despite this being a rock fight down the stretch, despite neither team cracking double-figure points until the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, LA won in a completely different fashion, which I think is noteworthy and I think is impressive, because LA in back-to-back games against, again, back-to-back potential first-round opponents showed we can win the shootout against Denver. We could go shot for shot. We could go into who has the prettier offense, who can make the bigger plays. You can't stop us. We can't necessarily stop you. And we're just going to exploit certain matchups and we're going to attack you. This is a defensive slugfest, and we're going to out execute you defensively, and we're going to get it out the mud. And there's nothing you can do about it. And LA just made enough plays down the stretch. So I thought the contrast of the way that they won these last two games was refreshing, was encouraging, and it showed that LA can win in different forms and fashions. LA can win going big. LA can win going small, though they closed this one big again, similar to the Denver game. We got to talk about DeAndre Ayton, and like second straight game, he just is an absolute dud and then turns it on in the fourth quarter. Lakers go away from him for over 12 minutes, bring him back to close the game, and he's becoming their closer. And that was not something on my bingo card this deep into the season. It was like DeAndre Ayton becoming this beacon of reliability and stability for the Lakers in these close games, especially in games where he's been struggling earlier in the game. But I just thought LA tonight, just finding a way to win, and similar to the Denver game, this was a group effort. This was so many guys made plays down the stretch. So like Luka carried the offense all night and had a huge bucket. Lakers were in a rut. goes to the post on the right block, has that little turnaround floater. DA, I mentioned, scored 6 of his 7 points over the final 3 minutes, had a couple of big offensive rebounds, had some nice defensive stretches of switching out and being part of some of the doubling and scrambling and rotating and boxing out. AR had the huge second half with the 4 steals and a block and the charge drawn. But he had the late steal that, I mean, the game was it was on ice at that point, but that was like the final nail in the coffin. Austin gets the steal, hit ahead to LeBron for the dunk. Marcus with another huge 3. He has the huge 3 down the stretch of overtime against Denver tonight. Huge 3. Lakers are up 91-94. He hits the 3. Lakers go up 94-90. And then he also has a nice interior pass to DA for one of DA's buckets. And then LeBron with the swing pass. LeBron had a 3-point opportunity. He passed that up, swung it to Marcus on the left corner. He hits that 3. And then LeBron also gets the dunk and also had several nice drives where a couple of DA's, at least one of his offensive rebounds, but it might have been both, came off of LeBron drives. I believe LeBron drives and misses. At least one of them was. So LeBron like getting downhill, putting pressure. And I thought he had some nice plays attacking their smalls in the post with deep seal. So just another game where LA out executed a playoff, potential first round opponent. Another game where everybody in the lineup contributed in some meaningful way. And just this is the peak of the season up to this point, right? And the Lakers have to keep this going. If they go 8-6 down the final 14 games and go like 3-3 on this road trip or 2-4 on this road trip, and like some of this momentum dies, then we will look back on this stretch fondly, but like ultimately it won't materialize into anything. So like they gotta keep at it, keep going. And there was points in the Denver game, it looked shaky. There was points tonight, it looked shaky, but LA's finding ways to win these games. And that's ultimately what matters, is adapt and survive, adapt and survive, adapt and survive. They are doing that on the fly in a really impressive way. And they're just coming together in a way that I thought they could. There just were a lot of signs that they were not, based on injuries, based on some of the fit struggles at times with certain combinations, just based on the defense for most of the season, based on the rotation for most of the season. But they figured out going into tonight, the starters were +7 in terms of net rating post All-Star break. The big 3 was +12.6. I believe that increased after tonight. So like they're nailing the starting group, which has also been the closing group the last couple games. The big 3 have clicked in a real way and have been dominating their minutes. Like I said, coming out of the All-Star break, I was like, it'd be great if we could get a sustained stretch of like +6, like +8 would be amazing. +6 would be like just awesome if the big 3 could be like a +6 net rating. They're at like a +13 point something now. So they're just dominating their minutes, and Lakers just coming together at the right time. And I don't know what this means. I think we will continue to see like what happens Wednesday, how this road trip goes, how the end of the regular season goes, who they match up with. But it's just hard not to feel really optimistic and really good about this team right now with the way things are trending. In terms of notable performers, I'm skipping ahead here. Luka Doncic, 36 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 4 turnovers. Efficient night from him from the floor, 14 of 27, 4 for 12 on threes, 4 for 5 at the free throw line. That easily could have been higher in terms of his attempts based on some of the contact on his jumpers. But so he went, 10 for 15 inside the arc. So just dominated them inside the arc. And he dominated all 3 levels tonight. Like Houston is one of the best defenses in the league. And if you are drafting teams that are in theory like capable of making life tough on Luka and hanging with him, like this would be that type of team. They got Eason and Thompson and Smith and Durant and DFS and Okogie, and they just got an army of wings of different sizes and lengths that they could throw at him. Different, Okogie's more of like the stocky type that will use physicality, whereas KD and Jabari Smith are going to rely more on their length. But like they have an army of players to throw at Luka and Austin and LeBron. But Luka did largely whatever he wanted tonight. And just carry, 36 points, Lakers scored 100. He scored 36% of their points. And when, especially had a great first quarter, scored 16 in the first quarter. I believe it was like 8 for 12, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe, no, 7 for 10 in the first quarter, excuse me. But like just an awesome Luka game, continues his high level of play defensively. So going to get into it a little bit more with one of the takeaways, but Lakers defensive game plan, kind of like late in the first half into second half, started just being these guys can't really shoot outside of Reed Shepherd, and Tari Eason's been in a prolonged slump, and Jabari Smith's the other guy who could really shoot, although he cooled off after a hot start. I almost nominated him to the Laker killer team, but he is the committee rejected the bid after that second half from him. But the Lakers just decided we're going to send 2 at KD, and we're going to basically zone up 3 versus 4 the other 4 players. And they were able to pressure KD. He had a backcourt violation. He had 7 turnovers, second most of the season, as I said. Just a disaster class offensively for Houston. If you actually look at the numbers, Houston shot 48%. They made 1 more shot than the Lakers. Their offense was not that bad when they actually were able to get passes to open guys, and they had a lot of offensive rebounds tonight. That was a big swing factor in their favor. It's like when Houston was actually able to run their offense and execute, they generally got good looks and or got multiple chances. There was one play late where they had like 3 offensive rebounds, 4 possessions on one play, and it was just like they just could not make shots. But the Lakers' defensive game plan was great against Kevin Durant. They executed it at a very high level, and Luka was a big part of that. At times being the primary guy on KD, funneling him into help. Sometimes he was the trapper. Sometimes he was one of the backside guys with deflections and rotating. So I think like Luka continues to play his best basketball of the season. LeBron, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Interesting comment from JJ before the game where he explicitly laid out that he thinks the best version of the Lakers is a version where LeBron is 3rd in usage. And I think it's been a big talking point lately, right? Of who's the number 2, who's the number 3, how did the Lakers get Austin going? What's LeBron's best role? This and this and this. But hearing it spelled out that clearly, like JJ had kind of alluded to that before, but he had sort of danced around it. That was like the most direct he had answered that question or that topic before. And it was like interesting to hear, because this has been now since LeBron has been back, there has been somewhere between a 5 to 8 shot gap between Austin and LeBron. So he has been not even like a close 3rd in the pecking order. He's been more of a distant 3rd, relatively, compared to Austin, just from like a shot attempt perspective. But LeBron tonight, like quiet first half, and I don't think had like his recent level of juice in that first half, but I thought he had a really good second half. Scored 14 of his 18 in the second half, and getting out in transition, attacking the rim, some of the post up stuff, attacking their smalls. I think the Lakers could do a better job of going to that on Wednesday, but only had 1 turnover. And had a couple steals. I thought was making some plays defensively and challenging guys on drives and stuff. So of course there will be the times he doesn't rotate. There'll be times he doesn't get out to the shooter, doesn't box out. That I think that's just going to happen with a 41-year-old in year 23. But I thought LeBron continues to be the ultimate Swiss Army knife for this group. And whether it's playing the 5 or playing the 4 or being more of a facilitator or being more of a bully ball guy or more of a spot up guy, more of a transition weapon, like he could wear all these different hats for LA. And, I think that is something that they're going to continue to leverage. And for what it's worth, there's always a lot of talk of, about LeBron's plus minus, and tonight he led the team in plus minus. Lakers were plus 13 in his 33 minutes. So I think it's worth touching on that as well. Then Austin had an interesting game because 15 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 of 18 shooting, 0 for 8 on threes. So he was 5 for 10 inside the arc. Really struggled tonight with his jumper. Just did not have the legs. I don't know if it was the OT game against Denver or like the Lakers have been playing a pretty condensed schedule lately, and some of that maybe caught up to him. This also is a matchup that on paper is tougher for him with Amen Thompson being the primary guy. But even if he's drawing a switch, it's like he's drawing 2 near 7-footers, or I'll say KD's a 7-footer, and KD and Jabari Smith, or he's drawing Tari Eason or like DFS or a Kogi. Like this is a really tough matchup, and the type of matchup that Austin has struggled in at times this season. I don't want to say every time because I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's fair, but he has struggled. We've seen it with the San Antonios, the OKCs, etc. And so the shot was not quite there, but I thought Austin's defense tonight, and I've said this before, there will be points I'll be like thinking back on my post game and what I said. And there's always like 2 to 3 things at a minimum I wish I highlighted more from the previous game. And one of the things I wish I highlighted more from last game was I thought Austin switching on to Jokic and being as physical as he was against him was an underrated part of LA's fourth quarter success and overtime success. Like Denver was really trying to target him, and I thought he met force with force. And of course, Jokic is still going to win that matchup more often than not, and the Lakers are still going to have to double there. But it was more the process of Austin isn't just ceding the catch. He's going to fight Jokic for position. He's going to front him. And if Jokic gets the ball, he's going to poke at it. He's going to reach. He's going to grab. And there's like a level of physicality that I think, especially a guy like Austin, who teams can try to target with his physicality or strength, like he needs to fight that with, I think, a baseline level of physicality. So I thought he had that in the Denver game. And then I thought that materialized tonight. And him being at times the primary guy switched on to KD. They tried to target Austin again, but as both the doubler and also a guy playing the passing lanes, he was brilliant against KD. I believe 3 of his 4 steals were off of KD passes. He also drew the offensive foul that was upgraded to a flagrant. It was just a frustration foul from KD, from Austin. He had just picked him twice, and then now he forces a pass out, and Austin's just in his way. KD pushes him to the ground and gets a flagrant 1. So like that, then he had the steal late. He also had a block. Like I want to, I know Austin's defense at times has been a very polarizing topic on this channel and on other channels. But I think the defense has been there the last couple of games in a big way, in big matchups, in big moments. And there are some limitations. Like there's a play I think I want to say it was this was first half, late first half. Jabari Smith, like Austin is trying to box out Jabari Smith. Jabari Smith is 6'10". He just jumps up, gets the offensive rebound, and dunks the ball. And there's nothing Austin can do about that. From like it was Austin and Luke Kennard were the 2 closest guys. Austin's trying to battle him. Jabari Smith gets the offensive rebound, puts it back. Like there's just nothing that Austin could do really in that scenario other than foul him. But so like there will be limitations within that. But I just thought from a competitive standpoint tonight, he brought it. And though the shot was not falling, he still had some nice drives. He still got to the free throw line 5 times, tied with Luka for second on the team. Actually, Jake LaRavia with the 6 free throws. But Austin, I thought, really competed on the defensive end and made some big plays there. Then Marcus Smart. Marcus, I'm running out of things to say. Like this dude's he's just a winner. He's a competitor. Tonight, 4 for 9, 11 points, hit 3 threes. the big three late, had an assist, and had 5 fouls. I thought at times was a little. He was the primary guy on KD, so he had a huge role in shifting him toward the doubles and the traps. Now Houston was doing everything they could to get him switched off of KD, but then Marcus would find his way back, and that was the sort of the cat and mouse game between the Lakers and the Rockets. Was like, can we get Austin on KD? Can we get Luka on KD? Can we get basically anybody else other than Marcus out there on KD? And then the Lakers would try to find a way to shift him back onto him. But Marcus just, again, outside of maybe like a little bit of gambling, and I think that led to him sometimes being out of the play and also him picking up some fouls. Tonight, he did his job. Really, good defense, notable defense. Big part in Houston only scoring 12 points in that fourth quarter, and then also makes a huge shot, which just like it's kind of par for the course now with Marcus, where he might not be having the most efficient night, but he's made plenty of big shots in fourth quarters. I think about both Denver games that the Lakers won. I think about this game, like we could go down the list. Like he's had some really big moments offensively for this group. And then DA, it was interesting because similar to the Denver game, I'm taking my notes and I'm really disappointed in DeAndre Ayton. I'm ready with the quip. He is not Clint Capella because Clint Capella, until the last 4 minutes of this game, was the best center on the floor. Clint Capella outplayed DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes for the first 44 minutes of this game, which I thought was honestly embarrassing and disappointing for both DeAndre and Jackson Hayes. With Jackson, I think this is a kind of a tough matchup for him with how much switching they do, which negates Jackson's offensive role. And then also with how physical, his limitation continues to just be his strength and physicality and rebounding. And this was a matchup where they just punished Jackson out there, and he got played off the floor, only played 12 minutes. But DA was not much better through the first 3 quarters. And he gets a post up against Clint Capella. He takes sort of like a backwards sidestep dribble, and just lofts up a fadeaway that is almost tipped and misses short. And it was just similar thing to the Denver game where he just does not look mentally ready for the moment. He does not look mentally engaged. He's bobbling passes. He's getting offensive rebound, brings it low, gets it stripped. It was a lot of that same stuff of I will say I thought the rebounding was still there because he had a couple offensive rebounds late, but he had several throughout the course of the game, and the screening was still there. So I want to acknowledge he still was doing some little things, but overall, I thought the defense was not to where it needed to be, especially the rim protection. They had 20 points in the paint in the first quarter, and he was out there for a lot of that. And then also, if you're going to say you're not Clint Capella, you need to go win the matchup head-to-head with Clint Capella. I haven't even mentioned it yet. No Alperen Şengün tonight, so that's Houston's second best player, for some best player, but I would say second best player in a huge part of their offense. I would say the thing with no Şengün is it does take away a passer, so I think that would help in some of the traps with KD. It definitely makes Houston worse offensively, but you could argue it makes them better defensively because he is limited foot speed wise, rim protection wise. He's a guy you can attack and target in pick and rolls and off dribble penetration. So there's I think overall he's their second best player. So I don't want to say that they're worse without Alperen Şengün. It was a loss for them not to have him tonight, but there were some benefits. And I thought those benefits were more so they were able to just go small, play their wing, go small by their standards, play their wings, no centers, and then just switch everything, which I think stymied the Lakers offense at times. But DA mentioned the big picture segment, but just completely flipped this game with his play in the fourth quarter and the offensive rebounds, the finishes inside, the switching and helping and roaming defensively. He was huge down the final few minutes. And I think these last couple of games have been big for the trust with JJ because JJ has almost blindly trusted him to close these games in a way that, again, like just based on his performance in those games, he did not deserve to close. Like if we were going off of merit, if we were going off of actual performance, JJ was closing with him more out of the need to have a center out there rather than, oh, like DA is playing at a certain level, we need DA back in the game. But DA rewarded him in both games with huge plays down the stretch of the Denver game and then down the stretch tonight. So this could be something that he builds off of and like a confidence and trusting, because JJ has mentioned trust a lot with DA, and he clearly has wobbled with that at times, with how often he has benched him in fourth quarters, how often he's benched him at the end of games, how much he's reduced his minutes since December. There's clearly been like a lack of trust, a loss of trust, but it seems to have been rebuilt here lately, and DA has delivered. And that is really important as the Lakers approach the playoffs. Like they need this, like they ideally need that version of him for a full 48 minutes or 25, 30 minutes. It'd be great if they could get that. But even if it's just get it for the final 5 minutes, like as long as the game's close, that could swing things. And then off the bench, I thought this was one of the worst bench performances I don't want to say of the season, because the Lakers have had some pretty bleak bench performances, but one of the worst bench performances of recent memory, of this recent stretch here, of like LA had turned a corner, especially post Kennard trade. Like I thought Kennard had a couple of assists, missed a couple of open threes. Like I just didn't have a good game. It was kind of another, and he's had a couple of these here recently where the other one, like the Chicago game, this one in the Chicago game, I would say like he's now had 2 of his worst 3 games as a Laker in 2 of the past 3 games. I'm not concerned at all, but I think it is just worth monitoring with him. And I'm not the first person to talk about this, but he does have a history of he kind of like typically arrives somewhere, has like a really big first impression, and then is phased out a bit of the rotation as the playoffs approach. And that seems to be happening a little bit here, but I think there's still a floor there of like, he's going to play 15 plus minutes a night. And I'm not going to overreact to 2 subpar performances from Luke Kennard. I think this dude shooting almost 50% or basically 50% on threes this season. I'm not going to overreact to that. Jackson Hayes already touched on it, but just not a good performance tonight. Not a good matchup for him, quite frankly. And just, he's got to be better on Wednesday. Jake, I thought, had a really solid game with the offensive rebounds. So he finished with 7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals. Did have 3 turnovers, and there's like there's a little bit of Marcus there with him sometimes, where like Jake can giveth and he could taketh, similar to Marcus. But I thought the offensive rebounding was huge. Some of the cutting that he had tonight, the defense, he was a big part of some of their success with the trapping and playing the passing lanes and loading up on their ball handlers. And Jake, I thought was solid. And then Rui. So Rui offensively, the shot has not quite been there in terms of his 3-point shot. This was the second straight game where he did not make a 3, but he did have a nice finish in transition. He had a nice post-up seal, and then he had a nice pull-up jumper. But he got cooked by KD in the first half in like the one-on-one matchups that ultimately led to LA having to send the double team. And then I thought the really frustrating thing with him, which they showed it on the broadcast when LeBron lit into him, he was getting absolutely destroyed on the offensive glass, specifically by Amen Thompson, but sometimes by Tari Eason, Jabari Smith. The possession I mentioned where they got 3 offensive rebounds, 2 of them were directly Rui in battle with another Rockets player, and the Rockets player won the battle. So this is one of those games where if Rui's not hitting his threes and he's getting killed on the defensive glass, that's when it kind of becomes difficult to justify playing him. Like I know he's got a certain utility with his gravity and just with the spacing, but if you're going small, he's got to be able to rebound better. And if he's not, that's where I might look at Jake LaRavia as maybe the guy you close with there, though obviously LA ended up just going back to the starters. But I'm more so saying if it's a small ball look, Rui's got to be better defensively. He's got to be better on the glass. I thought that was pretty rough there. He got worked considerably by multiple guys. And I think if it's Austin or Luke down there, there's at least a little bit like, okay, Ahmed Thompson's 6'7" with like a 45-inch vertical. He's going to win that battle against Austin. Rui's 6'8", 235 pounds. Like he's got to be better there. He's got to leverage that strength better. And that's just, one of the key weaknesses in his game. Then stat of no Vando for what it's worth. Second straight game, no Vando. Second straight game playoff. Only one bench player played over 20 minutes. It was Rui. Lakers went 40 minutes for Luka, 40 minutes for Austin, 36 for Smart, 33 for LeBron, 27 for Ayton, 23 for Rui, 17 for Kennard, 12 for Jackson, 12 for Jake, then DNP CD for Vando. So he is on the outskirts of the rotation, especially in more competitive situations. Stat of the night is 7 Houston turnovers in the fourth quarter. JJ said 9. I saw 7. So maybe we split it and say 8, but I guess we'll go with 7 officially. Maybe the Lakers had, he had a different stat sheet or whatever, but 22 overall though for Houston. And anytime you force a team into 22 turnovers, you've done your job defensively. But you also look at Lakers won the possession game tonight despite the offensive rebounding. So Lakers had their own offensive rebounds. They had 12 offensive rebounds, and that carried some things, including several late. But they took 5 more shots than Houston and 7 more free throws than Houston. And the big difference was they had half as many turnovers. They had 11. Houston had 22. So you get that many more attempts from the floor and at the free throw line, you're going to put yourself in position to win a basketball game. This was a rock fight from deep, though. The teams combined to shoot 13 of 60 on threes, under 20% there, like that, or right around 20%. Then takeaway number 1, a huge shout out to JJ's defensive game plan versus KD and Houston. And I think JJ's been in his bag lately, and it sometimes gets lost in the course of, or over the course of just analyzing lineup combinations and rotations and the individual performances. And just there's so many moving parts within a game, but I want to give JJ his flowers. And this is, I think, been something that has been building. The real turning point for the Lakers was that stretch around the Toronto game and the first Denver win, when he started to experiment more with the 2-3 zone. So now we're going back to, I want to say that's like mid-January, if I'm not mistaken, or late January. Yeah, around that, like it was right after the Charlotte loss. So yeah, mid-January. They had the Portland game where they experimented a little bit with the zone. Then they really used it in the Toronto game, helped win that game by 17. Then at Denver, they had a lot of success, not with the zone, but with more of a aggressive trapping scheme against Jamal Murray. But like since that point, I think the game-to-game game plans defensively have been really solid. There have been some misses along the way, but I think about if we go through it, like you had the Murray forcing Murray into so many turnovers in that first Denver win, forcing James Harden into a bunch of turnovers. Then they had some blowouts on both sides against like Chicago, Washington, Brooklyn, but then they also got blown out by Cleveland. But then like New York, they lost that game, but they did a pretty good job against Jalen Brunson. After Embiid, and they had a hot start against Philly, or Philly had a hot start. And then the Lakers, I thought, countered well and defended well the rest of the way. Couple tough ones with OKC and San Antonio. They punted that San Antonio game, but like you just now fast forward to like more recently, and the game plan against Jokic and in the first Denver game, but then also the second one, like still able to force him into a certain amount of turnovers and have him second guessing sometimes, and just able to ultimately out execute Denver down the stretch. I think about the Minnesota game against Ant and Randall. I think about the recent New York game against Brunson, the Indiana game against Siakam. Like they've just had some, and then tonight against KD, like he has a great first half and still has an efficient night from a scoring perspective, 18 points on 8 for 16 shooting, but 18 points on 16 shots, also had 7 turnovers to 2 assists. So like a lot of their mistakes or miscues defensively came on back cuts. They gave up a lot of back cuts because of how much attention they're throwing at KD. Some offensive rebound. I mean, a lot of offensive rebounds. And then some threes either off of Houston was able to break out of the double and create 4-on-3, 3-on-2, or some of the offensive rebounds tend to lead to wide open kick out threes. So like those were some of the breakdowns with LA's defense, but they held Houston to 92 points. They held them to 12 points in the fourth quarter. And I think JJ's been cooking with gas lately. So like, to keep, I mean, I gotta say Houston, if I were Houston, I'd be embarrassed with that second half and that fourth quarter. Houston was in great position midway through the third. And once the Lakers started they were at times sending very predictable doubles at half court. And I'd also be embarrassed if I was KD. Like just some of the turnovers he had against their doubles, it was like a sixth grader facing a double team for the first time. I just did not understand the basic inability to beat a double and a trap. And I thought it just like, you give the Lakers credit because they kept spamming the same scheme and it was working and it was brilliant. And they really sold out and just said, we don't believe in your ball handling collectively. We don't believe in your passing collectively. We don't believe in your shooting collectively. And we're going to load up and we're going to zone up. And we feel like we'll be able to rotate to the driver, rotate to the shooter. And they did have some issues with the boxing out, but like it was a pretty good game plan. And they forced Houston into 22 turnovers, and 4 Rockets had 3 or more turnovers. KD, Amen Thompson, Clint Capella, Dorian Finney-Smith. So KD was a lot of the doubling and trapping. Amen Thompson, he's the de facto lead ball handler / point guard for them. And he's been going through the growing pains of adapting from being more of a wing to a point guard this season. But then Clint Capella and DFS, like those are guys that you want having to make plays. You want having to make reads and decisions if you're the Lakers. And just like teams are going to funnel shots to Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia, like the Lakers are going to funnel the ball to Clint Capella, DFS, go make plays, go be a playmaker. And they struggle with that tonight. Then takeaway number 2 is looking ahead to Wednesday. One quick note here. I forgot to mention, this is just why ultimately I think Houston's the best matchup for LA of the 3. There's no easy first round matchup. Denver has arguably the best player in the world and has championship pedigree and a championship core. I think they have easily the highest ceiling of these 3. I don't think it's particularly close. Minnesota has been to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They beat the Lakers in 5 first round. So there's also some history there, and they have a certain level of confidence despite being swept in the regular season series against LA. And Houston is like, if you're building a team to be a tough matchup for the Lakers out of a lab, it would be like Houston, of just an army of long, athletic, tough, physical wings that, in contrast with the Lakers, are just way more athletic and stronger and all these things. So, but Houston, though, has, I think, the lowest offensive floor. And we saw it in crunch time tonight. Like it did not get much better in the clutch with their offensive execution. So I just think the Lakers can score on Houston at a high enough rate that as long as they can be like competent defensively, which they were more than competent defensively tonight, I think they're going to win that matchup. Then takeaway number 2 is looking ahead to Wednesday. Just a few notes and adjustments on my end. Lakers need more from DA and Jackson. Again, DA had the great close, but they need more from him the first 3 quarters. I think if they get that version of DA for more of the game, this maybe is a more decisive win from LA, and it doesn't have to go into the clutch. I think Rui, as I mentioned, has to be better defensively and has to be better as a rebounder. I think LA did a really good job of targeting Reed Shepherd, but I think they could do it even more. I also think they could target Clint Capella a little bit more with his lack of foot speed with Austin in particular. But with Shepherd, I think more LeBron, Luka, Laravia, Rui in the post. More so the first three, because I think Rui hasn't been as good this season at targeting smalls in the post, but he did have a nice post up against Shepherd in this game and got a bucket off of it. But going to those guys in the post, in transition, deep seals, running different actions to get those guys isolated in the post. There was a brilliant back screen from Luke Kennard for lob pass to LeBron, lob entry pass to LeBron, like stuff like that. I think LA does have a size advantage against Reed Shepherd, and they need to continue to spam that and really try to play him off the floor, because he was their best ball handler tonight. It's just he's a defensive liability that Ime Udoka only trusts to a certain degree. And then takeaway number 3, this one is Tari Eason scouting report. So my favorite running bit on this show is that anytime a player is tied to the Lakers in any way, they always just have a terrible offensive performance against the Lakers. So tonight, Tari Eason, 5 points on 2 for 11 shooting, 0 for 3 on threes. He was 0 for 15 over his past 5 games on threes. So he's now 0 for 18 over his past 6 games. His 3-point percentage has been dropping. He was above 40% for a lot of the season. He's now at just under 38%. But so the offensive end was rough, and I'm not going to pretend to I'm not going to overlook that. But I will say with Tari Eason, the ability, Luka's going to get his no matter what, and Luka had an efficient night from a scoring perspective, and Tari Eason was the primary guy, though the Lakers also attacked different guys, and Luka was able to attack mismatches. But Tari Eason as the primary guy, I think Amen Thompson did a better job than Tari Eason. I think Amen Thompson is just a better defender than Tari Eason, but he is a guy that you can put on multiple. I thought he did a solid job on Austin when he was guarding Austin, and there was a level of physicality there of just getting into Austin that I really like about Tari Eason. But the things I liked about him tonight were the 9 rebounds, including 5 offensive rebounds, tied with Amen Thompson for first on the team. 3 assists. I think he's an underrated passer for that archetype of a 3-and-D guy that isn't necessarily a high usage ball handler or playmaker. But if you trigger the blender, or you give Tari Eason a relatively straightforward passing lane or just read to make, I think he can make that. And then a couple steals tonight as well. And I just think hard-nosed, multi-positional defense. So he is a guy that, especially if his shot does not return over the stretch run here of the season, I could see his price dropping potentially a bit in terms of just his market value. But I think he's a guy who's going to make more than the non-taxpayer MLE, which is around that 15, 16. Ideally, if you're the Lakers, it's still in the teens and not hitting that. Because there was a report last offseason. He wanted 25 million annually. I don't think he gets that. I think he's really good. And I think he deserves to be paid starter money, because I think he's a starting level player, and just players of that ilk that can defend multiple positions are still young and are, again, he's been a 40% 3-point shooter for most of the season up until recently. He's gone through a cold slump. The shot is the thing for me that I'm most concerned with, also some of the injury stuff he's had. But I think he's a guy, if you could get him for somehow 16, 17 million, ideally he's not your primary player you're adding. It's more of you add a better player, you add the Peyton Watson, the Walker Kessler, or you trade for the Lou Dort, the Isaiah Hartenstein, whoever it ends up being. He's more like the second starter I would want to add, right? I think the Lakers need to add at least a couple starters. And if he's the secondary guy you're bringing in, I like that. But you did not have the best offensive performance, 0 for 3 on threes. But I also think you're playing off of Luka and Austin and potentially LeBron, depending on what happens with him next season. It's going to look a little bit different than playing off of Amen Thompson and Kevin Durant. So that is my few thoughts on Tari Eason. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A here. Shout out to the chat. Appreciate you all. First one from the Halibans. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for saying hi at the Bulls game. Flew from Van for, assume you mean Vancouver, for my first LA home game and saw the Bulls and Nugs. Funny how the DACC story writes itself tonight. Wish he was more aggressive or happy with his game. It's tough because like I'm of two minds. Like, so I would say I'm happy. Like, I'm happy in the sense of I think he redeemed himself, and I think he redeemed himself in the fourth quarter, last few seconds of the Denver game and overtime of the Denver game, and then the last few minutes tonight. So I think he, like, if you just look at the stat line, 7 points, 11 rebounds, a steal, and a block, I think that's a little bit deceiving to his overall impact or game, because I think it was very backlogged in terms of his impact, but the impact is the impact. And I think like sometimes it doesn't really matter how you get there. It's just, do you get there and do you contribute to the win? And sometimes it is like, I try to in general be more process oriented than results oriented, but sometimes it is results oriented. Sometimes it's about, do you do enough to just get the win, right? We could, in the playoffs, it's going to be about, do you do enough to get the win? It's not going to be about, there will of course be nuances within all this, but like in general, it's just like, did you do enough? And I think DA did enough in the last two games. Now, would I love for him to be more consistent? Yes. Would I love for him to be more reliable in general? Yes. Would I love for him to not get outplayed by Clint Capella for the first 44 minutes of this game after he had the quote that he had and the back and forth with Capella that he had? Yes. Like, if there was ever a game to come out and just be like, because he also had the floater that he short armed in the middle of the floor. It's just like, yeah, it was not his best performance, and not like the last couple games. I think have been rough, especially like the first three quarters. But it's tough. Like, it's tough to be disappointed with the end result, which was a win, and his contribution to that late. So I guess like I think he redeemed himself in both games, and I'm happy with the outcome and his contribution to that in both games. But in general, I would like for him to be better earlier in games in some of these bigger matchups. Because I would say, despite the flashes he had against Denver and Houston, like, I still have some open-ended questions about, I mean, I've talked about it with the Denver matchup. I thought he was awful in that first half in the first matchup. I thought he had a terrible first shift in the second matchup. Before both matchups, he left with injuries. And I thought he was bad through the first 3.5 quarters of the third game. And then he redeemed himself returning late in the overtime. But it's like, I would say he's been like, it's been more bad than good against Denver overall this season. And then Houston, he was awful on Christmas. I don't think he was good the first three quarters. And then I thought he redeemed himself with the last few minutes, but I would still argue, just in terms of like, if we're judging like pure minute production out there or just performance out there, he has been worse than he's been good against Houston as well. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistency, a little bit more fire from him with the game on Wednesday. But it was great to meet you. And I love meeting the late night gang in the wild. And I know sometimes I people message me on Instagram and I miss a message. I always feel terrible about it. But if you guys ever see me walking or anything, if you call me out, I will come over and chop it up with you. Sir Haro, thank you for the super chat. I'm not no Clint Capella. No, he is not. But he got the last laugh tonight. He made the big plays down the stretch, and Clint Capella Clint Capella did have like the best second half. He as I mentioned, he had 3 turnovers, but yeah, DeAndre Ayton redeemed himself. The Enigma 2004, thank you for the super chat. Do you still want to move Ayton to the bench? I mean, he's been playing better lately, so I will say no. And I think you could argue he's outplayed Jackson recently over just like the last few games. I think, I mean, to be honest, I just like, I haven't really like loved the center play in general lately. And I think that's why we've seen LA play a bit more small ball, but I don't think he's moving to the bench. Like, and I never thought, I mean, I was consistent in saying, this is what I want, but I don't think it's going to happen. Just like I mean, that was the same case with the starting group. It took Rui getting injured and coming back and being moved into a bench role for him to eventually be moved out of the starting group. So I don't see it happening regardless of my opinion or perspective on it. I think he's been better lately. If you look at the New York game, the Minnesota game, the Chicago game, I think the Denver and Houston games were rough until the end. I thought the Chicago game was much more offensive contribution than defensive contribution. So I think the defense has slipped the last few games with him, but I think he's going to start. So I've accepted that. And I think that the key is just getting the best version of him more consistently and outside of just the final few minutes, because you just got to be careful playing with fire. Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat. Rockets are trash. Need a blowout Wednesday. Rebounds, please. Yeah, I mean, the Christmas game was still fresh in my head, and there were definitely moments late second quarter, early to mid third quarter where it looked like Houston was potentially going to win this game, and that some of their physical advantages were a little bit too much for the Lakers, and like the Lakers just had dead legs. You could tell a lot of guys had air balls tonight or short jumpers, and just like the legs were not there. And that's going to be something to monitor on Wednesday, because you don't always just get your legs back on a road trip. But Houston's, I mean, that was like the Lakers have had success against Denver with the trapping, against both Murray and Jokic. They've had success against Harden and Kawhi. This to me was the one where I would be the most frustrated if I were the opposing team, because I thought in those instances, those teams had much better and quicker counters, and then they ultimately went away from some of the things that they were doing, which is a win for the Lakers defense. This was like, no, like let's try to decoy KD into an action and then double him, and Rockets just don't know what to do. And KD's like trying to force passes in between two guys, or there's clearly a guy in between him and a teammate, and he still throws the pass and it gets picked off. And I'm like, what are the Rockets doing? Like, what is KD doing? I really did not understand it. A lot of it was like very basic stuff that they just could not solve. So yeah, I mean, I think especially compared to Denver and Minnesota, I just don't think, I almost think like I think they're the sixth best team in the West, and I think they might be in their own tier where there's a tier 1, there's a tier 2, and then maybe they're in tier 3 in between the top 5 and the play-in teams. But yeah, got to rebound better. Peter, thank you for the super chat. Just got back from Intuit. LAL 1-5 versus OKC in San Antonio, and that 1 point win. And that one was a 1 point win without Wemby. SAS, really impressive. Do you see any chance against either? I don't. Peter, throwing me into the fire here. We're optimistic right now. We're feeling good. So one minor correction here. The win was with Wemby. The win was actually without De'Aaron Fox and Dylan Harper. That was, I believe, the game was November 5th, so it was 2 weeks into the season. But LA was also without Austin and LeBron. So it was still during the beginning stretch when LeBron was out, but then Austin got hurt. And so it was basically Luka and a bunch of role players versus Wemby and Castle and then their role players. So not really a fair representation of the matchup. I think the closest thing we've gotten to a fair representation of the matchup is that game in early December when in the NBA Cup, where San Antonio won by 13, and won pretty decisively and controlled that game. And that was around the time when it started to be clear that the Lakers really struggle with deep drop. They had the Phoenix loss, and they had the San Antonio loss, and Stefan Castle did a great job, I thought, defending Luka and also defending Austin. And then they just, some big shots from Keldon Johnson, and their role players shot the ball well, but like they killed the Lakers, point of attack defense off the dribble. They really broke down LA's defense. So that to me is the game that's probably the closest to what this looks like full strength. The first one, San Antonio also wasn't, I believe like there is context to some of this stuff. And you could also argue LA was trending downward at that time. So that wasn't like the best version of LA we've seen, but I would also argue that beginning of the season, it took San Antonio like a month to kind of figure out who they were. And that was also before Fox had returned. And like Fox, he was named an all-star. I didn't really agree with it, but like he's been a fringe all-star type guy this season. And they're just a different team with Wemby and Fox and Harper and Castle all together. It's a three-headed backcourt monster plus Wemby. So I say all that to say that we'll see, like OKC, Lakers get 2 more cracks at them. San Antonio, they don't. Lakers also punted a couple of the games against San Antonio. The game in San Antonio, it was just Luka again, but they lost that one. And then there was the second night of a back-to-back against OKC where they rested everybody. So I would say one of the 4 was like somewhat close to full strength, but the Lakers weren't playing their best basketball. And but I will say my fear with both of these matchups is that I think not only are they the 2 best teams in the West, which just comes with a certain amount of like respect and like it's going to be a war, but I do think their strengths are hit on a lot of the Lakers' weaknesses in terms of I think both teams can live with defending LA's 3 guys one-on-one for a lot of the time, but then they could also mix in some trapping and blitzing, and it's just when you have like Caruso and Wallace and Dort and those guys out there like wreaking havoc, it is just really tough to counter that. And OKC goes on those runs with their defense more so than their offense. And then San Antonio, Castle's defending at an all defense level. Again, Fox, like Wemby is just, they're on-off splits with Wemby. Teams just don't even go to the paint against Wemby. It's just like the split is ridiculous. He's the best defender, I think, by a wide margin. So I think Lakers would have a chance against the Spurs. I think the Spurs would be the favorites and deservedly so. I think it would be, though, a competitive series that, could it go 6 or 7? And look, the Spurs don't have, they're unproven. The Spurs do not have a lot of playoff experience with that group. The primary playoff guys are De'Aaron Fox, who's been to 1 postseason and lost in 7 to the Warriors. And then Harrison Barnes, who's obviously been in the postseason multiple times, was with the Warriors, won a championship, but that was earlier in his career. And he's also been phased out, moved from being a starter to the bench. So I think San Antonio would be a competitive series. I mean, if I think the Lakers have a chance to win that series. I don't think it's like a 51-49 series, but I also don't think it's like a 70-30 series. I think it's somewhere in between there. OKC is the one that, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think it's a good matchup for LA. I think they could do some of the things they've done against Houston and Denver and the Clippers with some of the trapping against Shea, but I think OKC's gotten much better with that. And I just think OKC's defense is a different beast compared to all these other teams. So I think they still have a shot against OKC. I'm not going to say they're going to get like swept or completely like dominated, ran off the floor, but I think both those teams would be favored. I think OKC would be heavily favored. So not saying it's impossible, but if I had a choice, I'd rather play San Antonio than OKC. And that I don't think is close. The Enigma 2004. Thank you for the super chat. Call me crazy, but games like this encourage me. We didn't play our best and got out rebounded and still defended well and won. I'm encouraged. I agree. Look, I could have condensed my opening monologue into these 3 sentences here, but yeah, the Lakers did not play their best. They still found a way to win. And that was sort of my point with comparing it to the Denver game. The Denver game was more of a shootout, more of the offensive fireworks, and LA just like not the best defense, not the best execution at times, but they found a way to get it done. This was complete rock fight. Lakers didn't score double figures in the fourth quarter, or you didn't reach double figures until the 2-minute mark. Marcus Smart's 3 with 2 minutes left. They crossed into the 11-point threshold in the fourth quarter. Lakers had a stretch where they missed 10 straight shots. They had multiple stretches in this game where they did not score for 3+ minutes. Neither team scored from the 6-minute mark to the 3-minute mark in the middle of the fourth. This was an absolute rock fight of epic proportions, and LA beat Houston at their own game. So if LA gets a more normal shooting performance on Wednesday and there's regression to the mean in a positive sense, they win by 15-20. As Cage Britt follows up with here, thank you for the super chat. Game isn't close if AR's shots fall. Excited for Wednesday. Yeah, and if the Lakers can win on Wednesday and stretch this to 7, it's gonna be a lot to talk about this week. There's gonna be a lot to talk about this week. I'm excited for tomorrow's Lakers Collective. Jay, thank you for the super chat. DA, legit cheeks all night. Oh, man. I wish I thought of that. Until his final 3-minute stretch to close the game, LOL. We will take it, though. Back-to-back games, he showed up in crunch time, LFG. Exactly. That's my point. He redeemed himself. Does he need to be better? Yes. Do I think you just don't want to play with fire of close games, a missed call can go against you, a shot can go against you, a turn, whatever. You just don't want to be in that situation, but he showed up in a big way in both of the games. He deserves his credit. He deserves his acknowledgement, his flowers, and he's got to be better in general, but he delivered in crunch time. Jay again, thank you for the super chat. I know JJ gets a lot of flack from fans, but I think he deserves a ton of credit. He was truly maximized a deficient defensive team the last 10 games. Going into tonight, so some of the numbers, going into tonight, the Lakers were 9-4 post All-Star break, third best record in the West behind OKC and San Antonio. They were 5th in offense, 12th in defense, and 8th in net rating, which was 2nd in the West behind only San Antonio, 0.1 points higher than OKC, who was 3rd in net rating. So LA's been post All-Star break by any measure a top 3 team in the West. I know technically they are record-wise, but it's relatively close where we've had the discussions and the debates all season of who's better than who and looking at net rating and looking at point differential and record. Lakers have just been, no, they're delivering on both sides of the ball. They're delivering from a net rating perspective. They're delivering from a statement perspective of they just beat every single team that they might face in round 1. There's nothing to really quibble with. Yes, okay, the Boston loss was disappointing. Wish that one was closer. The end of the Orlando game, the end of the Phoenix game, both could have and should have gone differently. Okay, but you're going to have some of those, and the Lakers have more, most importantly, bounced back from that, and they've not let that sink their season. They've not let that derail the season. So just, yeah, I gave JJ his own takeaway, and tried to highlight some of the recent defensive stuff, but he deserves a lot of credit. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. Frustrating to watch. Rui's defense makes no effort. It's similar to what I said during my notable performers section. I just think he's got to box out and try harder. And just some of the defensive it's the combination of sometimes the defensive reads and just the slow processing plus being low effort and low motor. It's a dangerous combination in a bad way. And I think he's just got to be better. Bowen, shout out to Bowen. Thank you for the super chat. Can't believe Lakers D versus offense kept them in the game in the fourth quarter against the top 6 team. Yeah. I was texting with someone after the game and we were both just this is just night and day from even a few weeks ago, but especially earlier in the season, the Lakers were often winning with just the heroics offensively of Luka and Austin. And it was more the offensive explosions and okay defense at best. This has just been stellar defense and actually sometimes shaky offense. Although again, they were a top 5 offense post All-Star break going into tonight. So that's going to take a hit after tonight, but we could look it up actually. Let's see where they're at right now post All-Star break. And all the games are done, so it should be, let's see. Post All-Star break, the Lakers are still 5th in offense. They are still 12th in defense, so that's both of those have been stable, and still 8th in net rating. So that has not. That's interesting that has not changed. But they're 10-4, which is the third. So that the vitals have remained the same. Third best record in the West over post All-Star break behind San Antonio and OKC. 5th in offense, but second in the West. Actually, third in the West in offense behind San Antonio and the Clippers. Defensively 12th, and OKC, San Antonio, Portland are the 3 teams ahead of them in the West defensively, and then net rating wise, only San Antonio's ahead of them. So again, by any measure, the Lakers are top 3 team in the West post All-Star break, and it's been great to see. Jay, thank you for the super chat. Braun is a winner, always wants to see his guys shine, has no issue taking a back seat, highest IQ player ever, can fit in with any group. Agreed across the board. And I'm pretty tired of the whole number 2, number 3, sacrifice this, that conversation, just because I made this point on Lakers Collective, but I think we like to like clearly define roles and hierarchies. And I think there are going to be matchups where I think OKC is a perfect example of I would want to empower LeBron more against OKC, for example. And maybe that's a matchup where Austin takes a little bit more of a backseat based on his play against them this season. Like you still need a certain amount of production and performance from Austin, but I think that spamming more LeBron post-ups, mismatches against their smaller players and forcing them to counter what the Lakers are doing versus them trying to dictate terms defensively. I think that's one way into attacking OKC's defense. And so I think it's just going to depend on the matchup. It's going to depend on the night. It's going to depend on a lot of factors, but LeBron has come back and been nothing but additive to the group. Is he a perfect player? No. Are there going to be possessions where he doesn't rotate, doesn't box out, has a bad turnover? Sure. But everyone on this team has their stretches where they can be better. I mean, that's just part of being a team, part of being a basketball player. Like you could always do things, but it's just like hopefully limiting those mistakes. And I think LeBron has largely done that since coming back, but I think he's fit in perfectly as per JJ, the number 3 guy from a usage perspective. And I think he's been great. Jose, thank you for the super chat. Eason isn't worth 20 million. AR scaring me with the 3-point percentage. I mean, I think Eason is, if I had to guess right now, I would say 16 to 18 million. I think the 3-point shot, it's been a little bit of a stretch here where I think part of him hitting that 20 million is based on the jumper, but we'll see how it goes the rest of the season. But I'll just say I'll be pretty shocked if he was a non-taxpayer MLE guy. I think he's going to get more than that, whether it's from Houston or the Lakers, right, or someone else. But the Lakers are one of the few competitive teams with, basically the only competitive team with cap space. AR's 3-point shooting, I'm pulling it up here. The jumper has been not quite there. And, he's had the wrist thing. I don't know how much, if anything, that's played into it. But looking at, I will say, actually, like New York, 3 for 6, Minnesota, 4 for 10, Chicago, 4 for 7, Denver, 3 for 8. I know it's felt at time, he just had 4 straight games, 50+% field goal percentage, 4 straight games, 38% plus on threes. I think maybe you're feeling more the earlier stretch with Indiana and Denver and New Orleans, where he was collectively 4 for 13 on threes in those 3 games. But for the month, he's shooting 40%, and that's including the 0 for 8 performance. So Austin's actually been shooting the ball much better than. Yeah. So, last last 4 games, he just went 14 for 31 on threes. I mean, that's great. So I think Austin's playing great. I just like tonight was not a great offensive showing, but I thought he made up for it with the defense. And Gary Singh follows it up. Thank you for the super chat. I think this is more than AR just missing shots. Not sure if he's number 2 option in playoffs, but has to get more aggressive and find his shooting rhythm. So this is where you guys can push back if you want, and I love the healthy discourse. But Austin's coming off of 4 straight games of 25 plus, 4 straight games with 50+% shooting, and 4 straight games with 38+% on threes. I don't want to overreact to an off night against Houston, and he did that. 3 of those 4 games were against good teams in New York, Minnesota, and Denver, and 2 of those teams were top 10 defenses in New York and Minnesota. So I just think if we're gonna say Austin isn't a number 2 because of one bad shooting night out of 5 games, if he goes 1 for 5 and has like an off night every 5 games, I don't agree with that. And I think if you just go around, I mean, Jamal Murray, perfect example of, I think, an elite number 2 who can even step. Like, I think there's some similarities between Austin and Jamal in terms of Austin has shown an ability to scale up and be a number 1 in a pinch if Luka's out. Austin he's had a 51-point game. He's had multiple 40-point games. He can step up and carry your offense for a game or 2, but then he could also step into a certain role as the number 2, and that's where he has really thrived this season with a certain amount of usage. I mean, Lakers are now, he didn't reach the 20-point threshold, but they are 20-3 when he scores 23. I mean, when he scores 20 plus this season. But Jamal Murray just had a game where he went 1 for 14 against the Lakers, and I understand Jamal Murray's an all-star, finally an all-star. He is a champion. He has a certain pedigree and proof of concept with his production through the years. Playoff riser. I get it's not a complete apples to apples comparison, but number 2, like the higher you go up on the totem pole, the higher the expectations, the higher the scrutiny. And look, I think the jury is still out on if Austin is a true number 2 or if he's more of an elite number 3. And maybe the ideal slotting is you have another number 2. Austin's like the ultimate elite number 3, and that's the best build. I think we're going to get an answer here at some point over, like, I think in the playoffs, we'll have a better understanding of where things are truly at with Austin. But I feel like my primary pushback here is I feel like sometimes the Austin discourse just goes a little bit off the rails the second he has a bad game. And I think, again, like he just had a month straight where he had like 2 20-point games over that month. So I get, if we go back a couple of weeks, I get some of the stuff coming out of like the Denver game or the Indiana game, but he's been playing some of his best basketball. I mean, definitely best basketball of 2026, but I would say best basketball since like his great start. And I don't want to overreact to that. Kevin, thank you for the super chat. On Zach Lowe's show, discussion if Lakers are potentially the 3rd best team. Net, they said yes, they trust Luka's IQ and problem solving versus Ant in Denver. I think this game exemplified that. Yeah, I mean, if you want to argue for the Lakers as high as them, I mean, I know there's the people. I'm not one of those people that just looks at the record and looks at the standings and says it is based on the record is what automatically like where you are in the conference hierarchy. I disagree with that because, for example, the Lakers were the 3rd seed last year, and they clearly were not the 3rd best team in the West. I think if we did a re-ranking post playoffs, Denver would have been ahead of them. Clippers pushed Denver to 7 in that first round series. Denver, won the first round series, pushed OKC to 7 in the second round. So like you could argue that the Clippers and Denver were both tied with the Lakers in the loss column. Lakers won the tiebreaker, but based on their playoff showings, Clippers were much more competitive in the first round than the Lakers were. Denver made the second round and arguably gave OKC it's the best shot they took in a series in round 2. And then Minnesota beat the Lakers in 5. So like, that's where I just think sometimes like the hierarchy will reveal itself. Like the Lakers could easily be the third best team in the West. And let's just say they go like 12-2 to close out the regular season. They're the 3 seed by like multiple games. That they're not going to catch San Antonio. It's too big of a gap. Let's just say that happens. They go 12-2, amazing close to the season. They're rolling. They've won like 18 of 20. Like, you know, things are great. If they lose in round 1 or they lose in round 2, like how much did that ultimately matter? Like you did build on things. I don't want to like dismiss that, but it's ultimately going to come down to how things shake out in the playoffs, and we will have that answer soon. But so I just want to have that rant because I know I just see it a lot where people will more so default to like where a team is in the standings to like, for example, Houston has the fourth best record in the West right now. I think Denver and Minnesota would beat them head to head in a playoff series. I think they're both better than them. So that's like a perfect example for me of just the how the standings don't always show who the actual best teams are. I say all that to say, if you want to argue for the Lakers being third, I have no qualms with that. I think for me, I've talked about my confidence and trust in Denver. So I think Denver's the one team that I struggle going back and forth with. Lakers versus Denver 3-4 in terms of who's the third best team in the West right now. I think I view that series more 1-1 than 2-1 because Jokic didn't play in the first matchup. So like if it was flipped and Luka didn't play in the first matchup and Jokic did and the Nuggets won, I wouldn't count that game either. So like those are the two most important guys in the matchup. In the 2 games that Jokic and Luka both played in, they're 1-1. So I viewed a very even series that I think would probably go 7, honestly. But you know, if regardless of who has home court, I think that series probably goes 7, and that would be like a really fun series. I'm like, I don't want to say I'm rooting for that one, but that I think that would be a really entertaining first round series. So I'm right there with like Lakers and Denver, but yeah, I mean, I definitely have the Lakers over Minnesota and Houston. For me, that's so I think for me they're minimum top 4, but if you want to argue top 3, yeah, and with the way Luka's playing too, Luka, yeah, I mean, Luka could be the best player on the planet any given night, and we just won player of the week, was the player of the month in January. Like things are looking up for the Lakers. Juice, thank you for the super chat. Physical defensive narrative is played out. Can't keep waiting for an AR off game and bringing it up. He's carried us against a handful of physical teams, especially recently. I agree. I think for me, there's more. It's more so like there's a couple teams I think he has to play better against, and those. One of them's random. It's like Phoenix. I don't think he's played great against Phoenix this season, but more so the more pertinent one is OKC. I don't think he played great I thought he had a really rough game the first game, and then that second game, I thought he had a good first half, bad second half. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag, but that's one that for me, I don't have quite a great grasp on just how he's going to perform in that series. But I agree. He slayed the Minnesota Demon. He played really well against Minnesota I think he played in all 4 games, all 3 games. He did play in all 3 games. So he played in all 3 games against Minnesota. I think was really good in all 3 of them, including that game in Minnesota, hitting the game winner and dropping 28 and 16. And yeah, I think that's some of my frustration sometimes with the Austin discourse is I think it's like, if you just don't like Austin and you don't believe in Austin, that's okay. But I think like, and there are people who will voice that opinion. That's okay. But like, I think lead with that if that's just how you feel, rather than trying to frame it more as like an actual dialogue. Because I think if we're being objective with Austin, he's been great the last 4 games and has been just forget like even the production. It was like the execution there of the offensive rebound shot. Like that was one of the plays of the season, like not of the Lakers season, of the actual NBA season. That was one of the most impressive plays, just full stop. So I think sometimes the Austin discourse can trend a little too negative. Musical K 420, thank you for the super chat. Can we waive someone and sign someone, maybe a 3-and-D or a center? Yes, the Lakers can. So they could waive practically. We've already touched on this around the time that they ended up signing Kobe Buffkin, but they could have waived. They can waive Maxi Kleba technically if they wanted to. They could also waive Kobe Buffkin because he's got a team option for next year, so it's a non-guaranteed contract. But they could waive one of. I think those are the only two guys that would be potentially waived. Now, Maxi, JJ said today, is going to be out for a few games on the trip. They're hoping to get him back by the end of the trip. I think with how he's played at times recently and his relationship with both Luka and JJ, I don't think Maxi is going to be waived. So then it would be Kobe Buffkin, but Kobe Buffkin has played well in the G League, and the Lakers are trying to get some momentum here with some of their young guys. So I don't know if they want to sign him and then waive him at the end of the season. So I would be surprised if something happened here. I think this roster is probably the roster going into the playoffs, but yeah, I don't think anything's changing. Musical K420, thank you for the super chat. If Luke can't make threes, cut some of his minutes and bring in Vando. I just think Vando is buried. It's back to earlier in the season when, remember, he was a DNP CD in 8 straight games. JJ just, I don't know. He's clearly defaulting toward more towards shooting at times with some of the Rui, Luke, Austin, Luka, Jackson, or DA lineups, right? Like smaller ball and more shooting. Lakers have actually been shooting the ball pretty well. I just was looking this up, but they've been, I think they've been third in 3-point. They were third in 3-point percentage post All-Star break going into tonight. So they've been an elite shooting team coming out of the break. But Luke's been a big part of that. Rui's been a big part of that. Luka's been a big part of that. Austin, et cetera. Marcus has been shooting the ball well. But I think it ultimately, we have enough proof that I just don't think JJ fully trusts Vando. And I think his offensive limitations are to the point that JJ just doesn't view him as a rotation guy. Oi to boy, thank you for the super chat. Sup, Buha? Should we be concerned with our bench? I'm not. I don't want to overreact. Like Rui had been better lately. I think he has slipped a little bit lately, but of the New York game, the Chicago game, like he had some good moments in those games. I think the defense the last couple of games, outside of some of his Jokic post defense, I don't. This is why I view him more as a bench guy than a starter. Then Luke has had a couple of rough performances in the last 3. I think Jake, outside of Jake's extended shooting slump, although tonight he didn't make a 3, but he went 1 for 2 overall. I think Jake's been playing a little bit better lately, and a lot of his stuff just doesn't show up in the stat sheet. Jackson was injured, and then I don't think has quite been the same since returning outside of, or really since the Denver game at Denver. Yeah, I guess that's post-injury. Like the 2 Denver and Houston games, I don't think he's been quite to the same level he was at with, let's say the last Denver game or the New Orleans game, for example. So I guess Jackson's the one to keep an eye on, but I don't really have much. The Lakers, I don't think are going to necessarily be a high scoring bench, but I think they could be a middling bench. And it's not only offense that I look at, right? It's with Rui, it's the defense, it's the rebounding. With Kennard, it's the playmaking, the confidence he's playing with. How is he competing and holding up defensively? With LaRavia, it's his defensive playmaking, his offensive rebounds, his cutting. Can he exploit some mismatches at times in the post? With Jackson, it's the defense and the rebounding and the rim running and sometimes the short roll playmaking. So we could look at the raw point production and have an issue with some of that. And look, tonight, the Rockets don't have a great bench either. They got 19 points from their bench. The Lakers got 13. So both teams, I think, wanted a little bit more from their bench. But I wouldn't be too concerned with it. I think this is also correlated with JJ the last 2 games shortening the bench rotation, both in terms of actual guys. He's only gone with 9 guys, but he's also limited their minutes. That to me is more of a playoff rotation. So I think in general, with the 4 guys that are going to be playing, Rui, Jake, Jackson, and Luke, I think you take low to mid 20s production, like points wise, if that's what you're judging from those 4, especially in a playoff context. Like I don't think you should expect more than that. I think if those 4 can combine for something like, like if they can hit 25 points collectively consistently, I think that's pretty good. Because also, I mean, we know that the offense is, even now, like Marcus has taken on a slightly larger offensive role. So on a lot of nights, their top 5 scorers are all going to be in the starting group. Jeffrey J. Cal, thank you for the super chat. Ugly but gritty statement when love to fight in the fourth, holding them down, need to shoot and rebound better on Wednesday. Agreed across the board. Yeah, Lakers shot in 24% on threes. Did shoot well at the free throw line, 82%. And did take care of the ball with the 11 turnovers and also had the 12 offensive rebounds. So like did well in the possession game, but agree. The shooting, looking at it, if we look at 3 specifically, LeBron 1 for 3, Austin 0 for 8, Rui 0 for 2, Luke 0 for 2. I think Austin, Rui, and Luke going 0 for 12. I do not think that happens again. And I think if those guys combine for, let's just say they each attempt the same amount of threes, I think Rui and Luke go 1 for 2 at least. And I think Austin goes at least 3 for 8. So that's adding like 5 made threes instead of 0 from those 3. So yeah, I think they'll shoot better. Rebounding, we'll see. That's actually, I was looking into some numbers today because I did the herd for some of you who saw I posted it on my channel. I did an episode of the herd today. And so to prepare, I was looking through a bunch of the Lakers post All-Star break numbers, and I was trying to find like what have been some of their weaknesses post All-Star break. And the rebounding has actually been something that has been a concern. Like they've not, their overall like rebound percentage hasn't been like bad, but in terms of opponent second chance points and opponent points in the paint, those have been a couple areas they've been bottom 10. Savage, thank you for the super chat. Love the Batman logo. KD gets doubled and loses all thought. Yeah, I just don't. It like, I was having some wild thoughts during the game because I was like, I can't remember like a player of this caliber just losing all composure to this degree against the double team. Like, I don't know. It was just, it was rough. I really can't recall KD is top 15 player minimum, top 13. I don't know, depending on where you want to put him. What was going on? Like, yeah, that was wild. BT Kingsley, thank you for the super chat. I want to play OKC healthy before playoffs, like how we look. I love how the Lakers look right now. And yeah, I would love to get a better, like, I would love for the Lakers to prove me wrong and it be far more competitive with OKC, and they go into OKC and get a win, or they get a win at home and we have more confidence in that matchup. I just think, in my opinion, the things that the Lakers have struggled with this season, some of them they've addressed, some of them they haven't. But like OKC is just a very serious team that every possession they are locked in. They have a bunch of margin for error because of their depth, and just they win the margins. They win the possession battle consistently. Like, they don't turn the ball over. They force a lot of turnovers. You can maybe exploit them sometimes on the glass and in the paint, and that's areas the Lakers will need to try to exploit them. Also, you could play off their shooters, but I think that they've gotten better at countering some of that stuff. So we'll see. But I'm really excited. Like, those are, now that the Denver game's in the rear view and just the stakes of that in terms of like the season series, and then even this game tonight with Wednesday will of course be a huge game as well. But for me now, like, longer term, the OKC matchups are the two I have circled. The Billy, thank you for the super chat. DA has his flaws, but I don't like the small ball lineups. Rui is a bad rebounder and it gasses the others. JJ always resorts to it. Teams will prepare for it. I agree. I'm curious. I haven't looked this up. If we look at I'm going to pull up the small ball group post All-Star just out of curiosity. Let's see. Because I think they've been doing well. I agree that there's a limitation to it against, especially I think against the three teams they're potentially, or they're going to face one of those three teams. Maybe Minnesota, you could get away with it and try to play Gobert off the floor, but Denver and Houston, you're not playing Jokic off the floor. I don't think you're playing Şengün off the floor. So you're going to have to live with, it's basically going to turn into like 15 Marcus Smart threes, and you will win some of those battles, but you will also lose some of those battles. So looking at the small ball group without, so we'll go with the LeBron small ball group. There's one LeBron, Marcus, Vando, Rui, Austin. That's a plus 22 net rating. And then LeBron, Marcus, Luka, Rui, Austin. That's the one that we saw tonight. That's the one you were referencing. Plus 29 net rating. So some of those small minutes. We're talking about 11-minute sample, 10-minute sample. So that's minuscule. Bigger one with the starters are plus 6.9 net rating. And then the lineup that's crushed it has been DA, Rui, Marcus, Austin, Luka. That group is plus 40 net rating in 30 minutes. So yeah, we don't really have enough of a sample size on the small ball groups, but I would agree that I don't think you could do it against a full strength Denver and Houston team. I don't think it's something you could resort to other than like maybe some bench stretches, but not like a full fourth quarter closing. Could be wrong. And again, like some of the lineup that has been positive, but I think you probably have to go with one of the centers. The more we know, 77. Thank you for the super chat. Somebody give Jake Aaron Gordon's shooting coach. Aaron Gordon's shot transformation is one of the craziest things I can remember in terms of skill development from a player. Like if you just look at, if we pull up his career numbers here, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that he was not a good shooter. If we go through, I mean, 2 years ago, 2023, 24, he shot 29% on 2 threes a game. Last year, he jumped to 44% on 3.5. This year, he's at 40% on 4.5. Like this is, so from rookie year in 2014 all the way through last year. So he went 3, 6, 7. He went 10 years being a below average 3-point shooter. He did not have one single season as a league average 3-point shooter. His career high was 35% on threes. And then this past season, he developed into a plus 40% guy. He's been plus 40% back-to-back years. And he's like cashing like sidestep threes, pull-up threes, step-back threes, contested threes. He's cashed everything. So yeah, I mean, a lot of guys on this team could benefit from that, but definitely Jake would take him to a different level. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. I love the double teams top of the key. When KD passed the ball off, Rockets had to make another pass for a shot, giving Lakers time to recover. Exactly. It was meant to just slow it down. Like think about they had a couple of shot clock violations and or near shot clock violations, and that's also when some of those I mentioned earlier. Clint Capella getting a few turnovers, DFS getting a few turnovers. It would sometimes be the safety valve guy would then have to make the read in the 4-on-3, 3-on-2, and they would make the wrong read and screw it up. So yeah, it was a great game plan, and JJ deserves a lot of credit. Cage Britt, thank you for the super chat. Season ended today. Would you use 26 pick or trade? It's tough to answer this without knowing what I'm trading it for. I would, if a legit starting level player was on the table, I would probably trade the pick. Also depends what, like the Lakers are quietly playing their way into a worse pick right now, right? So from a record perspective, they have the 6th best record in the NBA. So OKC, San Antonio, Detroit, Boston, New York all have a better record than the Lakers. So that would be what, the 25th pick in the draft? I think, yeah, if they stay in this range, I would be open to moving it for a starting level player, but it depends who the player is. It depends if they really are a starting level player. A lot of factors that go into that, but I err more on the side of trading the pick rather than keeping it. But I also think there is value in a smart first round pick and that player being a cost controlled, team friendly contract, and you need those types of guys on your team. It's just also for me, like, I think this team should be in more of a win now mode than they've been operating as. And like, I look at next season as, if you can build the right roster, you have a legit chance to go on a deep playoff run and potentially win a title with the right team, but you got to build the team. So if you make the pick, there is upside in making the pick, to be clear. I'm not ruling it out. I just also think you're still building more for like maybe the 2027, 28 or 2028, 29 Lakers. And I think you ideally want to build both teams, but this year's group, imagine if they pulled off the trade for a 3-and-D wing or a different center or something, like a more reliable option. I think we would talk about this team as maybe like just at a different level in the championship conversation. I think right now they're in the mix at the top of tier 2. I don't put them in tier 1 yet, but they are trending toward that. But if they had a couple different pieces of this team, they could easily be in that tier 1 conversation. So I err more on the side of trading it. But again, like, I don't like answering this in a vacuum necessarily without knowing who is the player and if they're actually worth a first. Jerry Soriano, thank you for the super chat. Greatest NBA romance of all time, Bronny and Natalia. Are you wishing this into existence here, or what? Because Bronny's got a girlfriend, so I don't think this is going to happen. But I do. I appreciate the super chat, and you do have some great promo there. Mirage, thank you for the super chat. Not having that half court initiator in FVV really kills Houston. Having Adams for offensive rebounds was their only saving grace. Yeah, those two injuries, I think, derailed their season in terms of like them having a meaningful chance to do something. I will take the L. I took a long-term L on the Fred VanVleet situation. I was of the mind that, like, I understood there was going to be offensive complications and concerns. I just thought that throwing Amen Thompson and Reed Shepherd more into the fire would be like better for them in the long run. And that might actually still end up happening. I think Amen Thompson, even tonight, like, he's really grown as a passer and as a ball handler. And I thought he looked much better against some of the pressure than KD did, but he's not a full-time point guard, like lead playmaker, I think, ideally. And I think he's more of a secondary guy. So a kid, 5 assists to 4 turnovers. You want that to be better, but I think those guys have shown progress and growth throughout the season, but it'd be different if they had Fred VanVleet. And who knows, maybe they get him back, but it's probably not happening. All right. Out of the super chats, I am going to go about 5 more minutes. We'll say 5 to 10, which means another 7 hours. Hans De Leon says, I hope that we never see the camera angle against the Wolves. I've never seen that camera angle against the Wolves ever again, other than that time. I jokingly say that. I've seen it a couple times, but it's so rare. It is so rare. All right, my Tali Khalifa, thank you for the super chat. Missed the game because of work, but I'm excited to catch up after the stream. Are we back, Jovan? I think the Lakers are back. They've roped me back in. I'm spoiling my Lakers collective. I mean, I still, again, I talked about it earlier. Like, I think it's hard to make a case for them above being third in the West, but in terms of like odds to come out of the West, but even third in the West is higher than I think most people felt about them, or most people who are tapped in, because we know about a lot of the Lakers discourse and some of the stuff that plays, which is like the negativity. But for people who are, actually paying attention and know what's going on with the team, like, that there was rightfully things to criticize and be concerned about, but they've righted the ship here over the last week and a half or so, really post All-Star break. And I mean, they're top 5 offense, top 12 defense, been a top 3 team easily in the West, beaten all the teams in the past week that they will potentially play in round 1. It's hard not to feel optimistic about at least round 2. Now, if they play San Antonio or OKC, I think they're going to be heavy underdogs. But San Antonio is unproven. OKC is proven. I think OKC is the one that maybe there's some things we see in the final 2 matchups that change my opinion on that. That's the one. It's hard for me to envision a scenario in which they win that series. But San Antonio, I think they have a shot. And again, we've only really seen like that matchup semi at full strength once. Jason Singh, thank you for the question here. Do you see players like Rui and Jackson as must keep in the offseason, tradable, or let them walk? I think it really depends on what the options are. I think some of these hypothetical, and this is a hypothetical that the Lakers are actually weighing, right? Like they got to consistently be like, how do we feel about this player? Do we want to keep them? So it's a fair question. I just think it really depends on how the rest of the season goes. I think I would prefer Rui in a bench role, and I would prefer Rui closer to like 14, 15 million or so, which is less than he's going to want. But also, if you look at the market, unless he goes to Chicago or Brooklyn or Utah, depending on what they do with some of their cap stuff, or like the Clippers, like there just isn't really a lot of money out there. So if Rui's not getting more than the non-taxpayer from the Lakers, his market's basically going to be the non-taxpayer. So the Lakers might be able to get a bit of a discount there. Then Jackson, I really like Jackson. I know he hasn't been played his best basketball the last couple games, but he's coming off of an injury. So, looking at the big picture of the season, I think he's outperformed his minimum contract easily. And someone who has a great chemistry with Luka. He's on the Slovenian national team with Luka. So I think Jackson will be back next season. It's just the Lakers also have his bird rights. They also have Rui's bird rights, but it's a little complicated where part of the cap space is predicated on rescinding the rights to Rui. And if they re-sign Rui or keep his rights, that will limit their cap space greatly. So there might be an element of picking between Rui versus cap space. So I would say keep Jackson, Rui tradable if someone's willing to sign and trade for him, but then that hard caps that team at the first apron. So that's the restriction that I don't know if you want to put on yourself for a player like Rui. Typically it's more like star player or high level starter player. So I guess among the 3, I'd be open to Rui walking if you can replace him with a quality player. If it's Rui or like nothing or a downgrade, then I, of course, would prefer to keep Rui. Jerry Soriano says they're dating brother and Bronny's been balling. Okay, I did not know that, but that is that's news to me. But Bronny has been balling in the G League. Bronny's been great. Matt says, Jovan, disagree with you on SA. They're much deeper, more athletic, and younger than the Lakers. OKC goes 10 deep, and Denver, when healthy, is very good. I don't think Lakers could beat OKC, San Antonio, especially in 7. Well, I don't know what, if I maybe didn't represent my point well enough. I mean, I would pick OKC and San Antonio over the Lakers. I think OKC, I'd probably go 5. I think San Antonio, I'd probably go 6. But I would pick both of those teams over the Lakers. I mean, again, I did not say I think the Lakers are the second best team in the West. I think they could have a competitive showing against San Antonio, and the one unknown variable with San Antonio is just that they're unproven, and typically teams with their pedigree, if you just think about, just look at like the last decade, right? Golden State, up and coming team, has a surprise second round showing, has more expectations, loses in round one, comes back dominant, 67 wins the title. More recently, Boston goes through multiple years making the Eastern Conference Finals and building with the Tatum Brown core, gets to the finals in 2022, has some disappointing playoff losses, then eventually gets over the hump 2024. Denver has their showing in 2020, surprise Western Conference Finals, a couple injury-riddled years, wins the title in 2023. OKC, first round exit, second round exit, finals, wins the title. So typically, if you are a young team, even if you have regular season success, which the Spurs undeniably have, I would say, factoring in everything, I think they've been the second best team in the regular season. If we're just judging the regular season, I would go OKC 1, San Antonio 2. I think they're better than Detroit. They've also beaten Detroit. So, like, if there's a game 7 tomorrow, San Antonio, Detroit, I would pick San Antonio. But the playoffs are different than the regular season, and teams typically go through their lumps of maybe you don't lose in the first round, but you lose in the second round of the conference finals. And maybe for them, that's just losing to OKC in the conference finals, but it could be losing in round 2. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying the Lakers would beat them. I would pick San Antonio over the Lakers. I agree. San Antonio is great at a lot of the things that the Lakers struggle with. They can play that deep drop. They can switch. They have a alien unicorn in Wemby who can protect the paint and the rim and also do, like, I don't think the Lakers have a great, I mean, they've defended him well over the last couple of years, but he obviously broke out in a real way in that last matchup. Like, no one played, but still was a little concerning to be like, I think even if the Lakers were at full strength, I think Wemby still has like that type of performance and so to be clear, and even Denver, I mean, again, I said I go back and forth, third and fourth. I had Denver third up until recently, but with the way the Lakers are playing and with the way they just beat them, like I think that would be a close series. But I'm going back and forth right now on that. But yeah, I would pick OKC and San Antonio over them. Dio, Jovan, you think JJ could use Vando in a small ball lineup if Maxey doesn't recover well from his back injury? Maybe, but I just, again, like the last couple games where Lakers treated like must wins and Vando couldn't get off the bench. So I kind of think he's just out of the rotation for serious games. Savage, thank you for the super chat. Also, they need to dust the floors because Braun was out there playing slip and slide, almost hurt himself in the last inbound, just gliding. Yeah, there was a lot of slippage on that court tonight. I don't know what was going on. People were having too good of a time courtside or whatnot, but yeah, you got to get that under control. All right. Paul Perinello is just wants us to end here. He wants to wrap. Your boy asks if I am in Katie's group chats. I am not. Pocky says, Lakers or Spurs would be an interesting matchup. I just hate watching OKC. Well, the Lakers got to stay out of the 4-5. Dio asks, if you could pick a random player on this team to have a Lonnie Walker type of game in a series, who would it be? Well, based on all the comparisons, I think I would have to pick my twin, Jake LaRavia. We need a Jake LaRavia game. But that would be fun. I mean, DA having, I would say DeAndre Ayton, for the way it would break NBA Twitter, just having like a 25-18 game would also be against like Denver would be something fun. The Marcus Smart game where he hits like 8 or 9 threes. The Luke, yeah. I mean, I would say Jake, because if Rui or Luke has a huge game off the bench, like we've seen big offensive performances from Rui and Luke, so I don't think that that's like that random. I think from a randomness perspective, it would either be Jake just having like a game similar to that Minnesota game he had in the beginning of the season, or DA just like utterly dominating. I mean, he's played well against Gobert, but like, Gobert, Jokic, Şengün, whatever, DA just having like a crazy, like almost 2020 game. Madison says, Jovan, you didn't slander KD, so they call you KD stans. Slander is a strong term, so I did not slander KD. I was pretty critical of KD's turnovers tonight. I said I was pretty surprised a player of that caliber, a top 15 guy, had those types of turnovers. G says a 6th seed is better than 4th or 5th seed. Depends what you want. I think fourth seed is better for advancing, right? Just having home court. But yeah, I mean, if you could, I've said I don't believe in manipulating the matchups, but if you could pick your seed, I would rather be the 6th seed than the 4 or the 5. I mean, I definitely would rather be the 6th seed than the 5 seed. If I'm starting on the road, I'd rather just not be on the OKC bracket. 4 versus 6 is debatable, but yeah, I mean, I'd much rather play San Antonio round 2. And to be clear, I'm really high on San Antonio. I think San Antonio might be the second best team in the NBA. That to me just shows you, it's more so how highly I think of OKC than my criticism of San Antonio. Never stop ripping. Thank you for the compliment here. Saw you on the herd today. You're big time now. Yeah, that was a cool. That was cool. I've done it now. I've been doing it almost a year now. Every last year I did it a few times. This year I've now done it 3 times. I want to say like in 2026. So yeah, it's been fun. Saving Soul says Wemby is better than Luka now. No, Luka is better than Wemby. I'd never said that. Himothy. Hey, Jovan, I feel like Luka and AR are good team defenders and shouldn't be extremely hard to build this defense the way people make it seem. I agree. I think there are some, like, there are some complications with them. I think more so as a tandem than like individually. I think they both can be part of a good team defense, and they both have been a part of a good team defense recently and have both been contributing. I mean, I think Luka's been playing really good defense here over the last few weeks. But yeah, I think the thing is they're not like stoppers. So I think they can have, like we saw tonight, Austin with the doubling, playing the passing lanes, he's among the charge leaders. Luka with his defensive playmaking, his size, I think they could fit within a good defense. I do think you need to build out the other 3 players a certain way. And like, you ideally want 2 like you want at least 2 of the other 3 players to be like stud defenders. And you could argue like Marcus has been around that level, but like the Lakers still need more from, I think, another spot in the starting group. But yeah, no, I don't really have questions about Luka and AR. Like, again, we can revisit it post playoffs, and if the Lakers lose in round 1 in 5 games, I will potentially have questions, right? But I think the tandem has worked well last year. It's worked well this year. I think it's going to work well long term. Saving Soul says, then why would you have San Antonio winning the Lakers? Well, I mean, because it's not Luka versus Wemby 1-on-1. It's the Spurs versus the Lakers, and the Spurs have been a much better team than the Lakers this season. But I mean, if you want to say the Lakers win, that's fine. I mean, I said the Lakers have a chance against them. I don't really like the implication of saying it. If the Lakers lose a series, that does not mean that the opposing player is better than Luka. I think that's a stretch if that's what you're trying to draw out of that. All right. I'm going to, your boy says, so you hate waffles. That's really the logical conclusion here is I do hate waffles. Let's see. If I ranked it, I would go I would go French toast 1, waffles 2, pancakes 3. But I'm going to wrap here, though. We just hit the 2-hour mark. I went a little bit over, but, surprise, surprise. Appreciate you guys, though. For those, we got over 1,200 people in here. If you are watching right now and you have not hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it if you did. Takes a second, and then you'll potentially get notifications for the next time I go live, which will be on Wednesday. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. I will be back tomorrow. We're doing Lakers Collective at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I will also be on Spectrum tomorrow night. So for those who get Spectrum Sportsnet, I'll be on at 7 p.m. Talking about the Lakers and the win streak. Then I'll be back on Wednesday with Lakers Rockets Part 2 season series on the line. Lakers either go up with a 2.5 game edge plus the tiebreaker, or they lose and have a half game edge plus no tiebreaker. So big game for LA on Wednesday. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Merch is coming. I promise merch is on the way. Testing stuff out. Didn't like the quality of a couple things, so we are scrapping it and testing out different stuff. But I'm excited for it. So shout out to the chat. And for those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Lakers Collective, on Wednesday on here. I'll talk to you all then. Enjoy the rest of your night. Lakers have won 6 in a row. They're the 3 seed. Things are looking up.